Yeah, Rap Radar Podcast, Elliot Wilson.
This is B-Dot.
B-Dot, what's up, baby?
What's going on, man?
We're in this man's house, man.
We're invading the space.
Man, y'all just, not only did y'all take over and bring more cameras than I've ever seen in our New York
This ain't
office.
the shop, kid.
You put your sign up, man. Did you,
Mr. Maverick Carter.
did you change the Google address too to like Rap Radar? You guys took over our office, man. You put your sign up and I'm surprised you still got your shoes on.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for having us, Mr. Carter.
Of course.
Maverick Carter,
Yes,
baby.
sir.
Rap
Cheers.
Radar Podcast. First, I have to apologize to you. I have to apologize.
Why is that?
Because I was hating, man. I was hating on Maverick. and here's the problem.
I heard about this from somebody, by the way.
Future the Prince blew me up.
How'd you know it was Future, by the way?
Because you told me it was Future.
Oh, I did tell you. Did you call back to him?
Nah, I didn't tell him yet.
Okay.
No, but he's gonna hear this now. Nah, you know how I get beat out when
Right.
somebody like gets into the media lane, and I see Maverick out here doing Magic Johnson interviews, and I'm like, I want to get Magic Johnson on the podcast, blah blah. But I didn't really know your full story. Like doing the research for the interview, how much storytelling was a part of in your DNA. So
Yeah.
respect to you, man. I apologize.
Thank you.
for
I
hating on you.
honestly didn't want to get in your lane.
Can't be play hating, Elliot.
I was in fact just upstairs talking about do we think about someone else new, but I got nominated and I did it. So we had an idea. You talking about Kneading Dough, our show Kneading Dough,
Yeah.
about telling athletes stories as it relates to money and how their life is upside down to the rest of us, meaning they make the most money and are the best at their job when they're the youngest. So they have to make very crucial decisions
You were saying like
with
that
millions
20
of dollars
20
in
to
20.
28, right?
Yeah,
In the
well,
20s.
for us as executives and people working, we get better at our job and make more money later in life. So you're more equipped. So we had that idea, our agency had that idea. We pitched the idea as a show. They were like, let's do it. In the meeting, they were like, nobody better to host it than you. I was like, me. So then I was like, I'm selling an idea. So in order to get the idea sold, if I got to host it, fuck it, I'll host it.
Was that before Uninterrupted? The Kneading Dough
No,
was its
that
own
was-
concept?
That was an uninterrupted idea.
Okay.
We pitched that under the umbrella of Uninterrupted, of telling the more than athlete story. That was a big part of it, of money and finance and investment. And we pitched the brand Kneading Dough to Chase, and they loved it. We went for it, and they nominated me as the host. So I was like, if that'll get it sold, I'll host it.
I like how you use Jay-Z's like the unofficial theme song.
Yeah, I did. I mean,
Which is
Jay,
an unreleased J song, the
Right.
Dead Prez.
Dead Prez 3.
Yeah.
Jay did me a huge solid and a huge favor there. I called him up, told him I was going to call his publisher. I wanted to just use that little, that little
Kneading
clip
the
from
dough.
the song. Yeah, Kneading Dough, get it, kneading this dough. And Jay was like, sure, no problem. I explained to him what I was doing. He was like, no problem, go for it. I'll sign off on it. And Jay signed off on it, and we were able to use it. As you know, it's very hard to be able to use the voice of the culture of young Hov. So he signed off for us though. So I was very appreciative.
So what's that transition been like for you? Like getting because the Magic Johnson, congrats on that. I watched it.
Thank you.
The other day, that was a really strong interview, and a lot of people don't get that access, let alone get a real solid half hour out of him. And obviously, there's respect there, but I feel like he kind of got lost in being impressed with you, coming from more of a journalist angle.
Yeah, I don't even think I'm definitely not a journalist at all. I've never studied journalism. I'm not like I'm not sitting there thinking I'm a journalist, or I don't have the credentials of you two, and I'm not nearly as qualified as you two. I'm sitting there just as a very curious person. I built my career being curious and asking questions, and I've learned everything that I know about life, about my job, about my career by sitting with people. And I mean, the minute I sat here, I can't even help it. I started asking you guys questions,
Right.
like about Rap Radar and shit. So I'm sitting there as just a curious young person that gets to sit with Magic Johnson asking them questions, and what that filters through is the young people watching that want to ask and understand those same questions. But I'm just sitting there as a curious guy. I'm not sitting there as some well-studied professional journalist like you guys are. And that's why I would never, when Future said it to me, I'm like, I'm not, Elliot's like qualified, a journalist, studied, did this work. That's not me. I run a content company. They nominated me to do this. I'm sitting there as just another guy having a conversation. I'm not like a professional.
But that shop is popping off too now. Man.
Thank
That
you,
shop,
man. Thank you.
I be hating on the shop, man.
Why you be hating,
I get all the quality ass guests.
You do get the booking that no one can get with that shop.
Thank you,
shop
man.
has different,
Thank you.
You said the current episode, the last one, I think Seth Rogen was on it, right?
Seth Rogen.
You said that's the
Pharrell.
best one. Why is that the best one?
I just thought that one epitomized what we're trying to do on that show the most. They all have been awesome. I mean, you go back to the first episode, we had Snoop and Jon Stewart, awesome, and many others. But that last one was just like a cross section of passions. When you think about passions in culture, you think about music and acting and comedy and sport and fashion and business. And we had Seth Rogen from comedy and Pharrell and LeBron and Lonzo. We had Jimmy Iovine, we had Don Cheadle. Yeah. So it was a great intersection of passions. And then we got to real deep conversations about, America exporting black culture and racism and generations. Travis Scott and Pharrell had this beautiful conversation about Travis's generation versus Pharrell's generation. So you got to the conversations that you want to see. And then LeBron and Lonzo had the same thing about generations. And we had those conversations, but then it was deep, but it was also light where you can laugh. Like when Seth Rogen we talked about fame and what does fame take from you? And Seth Rogen says, the thing I'm most upset that fame took from me was I can't do my mushrooms in public anymore. So it's like, when you think about it, that's a very layered topic of just like when you become famous, shit that non-famous people do and enjoy it, you can't do anymore. But then it was light and fluffy. So I just think we nailed the guests and the topics were just perfect in the room. How do
you decide on who comes on the shop?
We have a team who goes out and puts the rooms together, and like I usually go with whatever they say. And then based on the room, we build up the topics, and there's no interview. It's not an interview, so it's just topics that we're going to discuss. The guests never know the topics. We just throw them out. And then like the last episode, Jimmy Iovine wasn't supposed to be on. He came to see it.
That's why he came in.
He was he was in the green room watching it, and then it was like, yo,
I'm coming out. Fuck that,
man. I'm going to come on the show. Right. So Jimmy just came on the set, and the show it works like that. I'm sure the editor wouldn't agree that it's that easy. It's a nightmare to edit, but yes.
But what's it like being in front of the camera? Because I know you said it's never been a dream of yours to be.
It's never been my dream to be in front of the camera. I get nervous as shit before every show, like extremely nervous. So if you see me drinking wine, it's not to look fancy or cool or like literally, I'm literally using it as a crutch.
And it's also created this environment where, like, you're like, unlike rap, right? NBA players, they have to do a certain amount of media, right, per season. They have to do certain things. But obviously, we know with these platforms, you guys have done a great job of owning your own platforms, right? So we know with the shop, we're going to get LeBron's rawest, uncut feelings about topics. Like, how important is to have that?
Well, I think for everyone who comes on the show, the idea of that show is no one's being interviewed, and we're all here to have a real discussion and really share how we feel at the current time. What are we going through? And I think LeBron being who he is, we all know, he's one of the leaders for young people, for black people, for sports people, for a generation of people around the globe. For him to open up and be willing to share and discuss things, it automatically opens everyone else up to open and share.
Was there any trepidation? Because LeBron is really candid. It's like you see him cursing, you see him kind of being himself. Like, his brand is very, I wouldn't say squeaky clean, but he's never been in trouble. He's never been, in a public eye for anything negative. Like, are you ever was there any kind of a reservation about how his image was going to be?
No, LeBron does. And the reason is because you used a word that LeBron would never use about himself, and I wouldn't either, which is brand. He's not a brand. Right. He's a person. And a brand, and the difference between a brand and a person, a brand, if something is working, like if we launch a brand today, a car brand, and we come up with a tagline, and a lot of people buy cars because of that tagline, 20 years from now, if it's still working, we're still going to be using that tagline, right? a person, you change. You're physically, you change. Mentally, you change. You get a wife. So he's never thought of himself as a brand or like, I got to protect something. He's just been himself. And that's what he is on the show. And I think that's what everyone is who comes in the shop. And LeBron doesn't think about himself as like, oh, I'm this brand. I'm like, I got this brand to protect. He's like, I'm a person who has feelings, who fucks shit up, who does things great, who says some things I shouldn't say, who believes in things strongly, who doesn't agree with everything someone else says.
Enjoys listening to music in cars, rap music,
he loves
new rap music.
He loves new rap music. But only, I tell people all the time, people always hit me like, yo, can get LeBron this? I'm like, you can send it, but he's genuinely only, if he likes it.
Yeah. As he said,
That's submissions.
Yes, he will. I guess he said that. Yeah, it's only the stuff he likes. He doesn't. Yeah. It's no rhyme or reason why he
whatever connects,
whatever he loves, and it's become a thing. It's like a big deal.
Braun.
What you say?
A&R Braun.
What did you think when it morphed into the whole 2 Chainz idea? Like, well, how did that come about from your perspective?
I think it morphed because 2 Chainz is a genius. I think 2 Chainz.
You're like, that's brilliant marketing and branding. And
he came up with that idea. That was his idea. He called me up and was like, yo, I got this idea. I was like, what's up? He was like, I want Braun to really A&R my next album. The album obviously turned out to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I called Braun, and Braun was like, does he already have some of the music made? And 2 Chainz was like, yeah. He had a whole different album, by the way. What became Rapper Go to the League. When Braun first got involved, some of the songs existed. Like NCAA was already there. But a lot of the stuff on there, the song with Travis, with Kendrick, none of that was done yet. But he had like 20 other songs. I think Chainz records every night, I think.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. Yep. And it was supposed to come out that year, and it ended up taking
and
year.
Braun was like, I got to hear the music. Braun was like, I can't just sign up. Let me hear the vein and the ideas. So Chainz and him got together, and Braun was like, we're in New York, actually. Braun was like, I'm in. What he did going from Titty Boy to 2 Chainz is one of the greatest exercises in relaunching of a career, of a brand, of an image that we've ever seen in our life. And I always tell him, it took me a while to realize Titty Boy and 2 Chainz were the same person.
Right.
I actually, for a long time.
Like, I love Trappavelli.
Yes. And he's right. I never gave him a shot as Titty Boy just because his name was Titty Boy.
Yeah.
And I've since went back and listened, like, he was always really good. He was always talented. I just never gave it a shot. Because I'm like, I'm not listening to. I just feel weird saying I'm listening to Titty Boy.
I remember when they called us the Rap Radio, there was like, Tech called us. It was like, he's 2 Chainz now. So we went back and changed all the posts. It'd be like, new music, 2 Chainz.
2 Chainz.
They literally got the thing. And the Spended took off, and then
exactly
we were off and running.
Yep.
How important is hip hop? I mean, to your life. I mean, I know you're really cool with Drake's camp. Like, how much of that you personally connect with?
Hip hop gave me the belief that I could do everything that I'm doing now. Hip hop is at the core of all of my ideas. Hip hop gave me the firepower to believe that shit, we could do this too. We could do it through growing up and seeing Bad Boy to Rockefeller to Murder Inc. to Death Row and those guys starting labels and Cash Money, to listening to the lyrics and listening to hip hop artists talk about doing it. So I think, after my family, sport, and hip hop are the 3 pillars of my entire being, my life.
What kind of hip hop fan were you growing up? Like, who did you listen to? What was the room look like?
I'm from Ohio, so I'm from Akron, Ohio, which is Ohio is a very interesting place when it comes to hip hop, because Ohio, unlike you guys, you grew up in New York too, right?
Yeah.
You guys both grew up in New York, so you have a strong affinity to New York, East Coast hip hop. And, certain people in the South and this. In Ohio, we're a melting pot. So we get a bit of everything. I grew up first as a kid listening to West Coast hip hop. The first tape I remember buying myself was Doggy Style. So I went heavy West Coast. But then the kid who was across the street from me, and this is 93 or 4. Let me just do the math. 94, let's call it 93. He was my best friend, and we would hang out every day, but he hated West Coast. He would be like, Tupac's corny, Snoop's corny, but he also didn't like Jay-Z or Nas or Biggie. He was he was the first ever Wu head I met. He used to wear
Wu-Tang, yeah.
Wu-Tang. All they had was backpacks back then. Wu wear had backpacks, and like they would do army fatigue coats. He would wear them every day. I wasn't into Wu-Tang, but he put me onto Wu-Tang. So you could come to my neighborhood, there'd be a guy who only listened to West Coast. There'd be a guy who come down the street, he's playing Illmatic. Then the kid across the street is playing Wu. And the other kid is like, y'all don't know nothing about this group called UGK. Like, Ohio's a big...
Bone Thugs?
Bone Thugs, yeah. Bone Thugs have
Everybody always asks that. They came way later.
Okay.
I mean, they came in like 97, 98. And everybody liked them. They were big around the country.
Right.
But it's not like New York where you guys take this serious pride in like,
he's from
this
there.
artist is from the Bronx. This artist is from Queens, so we got to listen if you're from Queens. We listened to everybody. The biggest group in the mid 90s to late 90s, and they know this, it's a weird thing, but outside of New Orleans, the biggest place for Cash Money was Akron, not even Cleveland.
Wow.
And the other thing is, what people understand is, Bone Thugs is from Cleveland. I'm not from Cleveland. That's saying I'm from Cleveland is like saying somebody from Brooklyn is from Queens.
Gotcha.
That's how it is.
Okay.
It's like it's just a different city.
Whole other
There's
world.
nothing wrong with it. It's just different.
Yeah.
So we actually were listening to Cash Money in Akron and Cleveland. They were still listening to No Limit, and we were like, "Nah, Cash Money is it." But Cash Money didn't blow until Juvenile High.
Right, exactly.
But I was listening to them way before High. You guys didn't hear about them until High.
So do you think
I was listening to them way before that.
Do you think seeing some of the hip hop empowerment of those type of movements, the entrepreneurship, inspired LeBron and you guys reach out to you at like what he fired his agent after the second season and said, "I'm going to put my career with my peoples and we're going to try to build something"?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were fortunate enough to not only be influenced by them, but Jay-Z took us in early, and we were able to be around him and learn a lot from him and model what we did after what we seen and learned intimately from Jay. And he let us be around in a very intimate way, which we were fortunate when we were little kids.
Elliot put him on that
I
XXL
couldn't
cover.
do XXL cover without putting them on there.
Remember that?
That's true. That's true. Exactly. That was a long time ago now.
Yeah, 05. Yeah.
Yeah.
Secondary season. But what was that like though? I saw your USC commencement speech you did. And you were talking about, like, the people that don't know, you had your dream was to work at Nike, and you had this really solid, great job, 2 years job, and then you get the call. So it was not necessarily the easiest choice to say, hey, I'm going to take a risk and get into this world. Of, like, how can I manage my friend?
Yeah.
My best friend. Like, how do I manage him? How do I make him as big? I don't want to mess this up. Can you talk about your feelings, like, when you first decided to take on that challenge?
When LeBron asked me to leave, it was more so for myself personally in my career. I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to do this. Like, what do I got to lose?
Yeah.
But thinking about, damn, I could fuck this up badly. And if I fuck it up, it's not a big deal for my career because I didn't have a career, right? I'm just a kid. But what if I mess this up for LeBron? So I was severely intent on surrounding myself. And again, going back to the curiosity, being curious and learning and asking a lot of questions of people who did what we were doing, a version of what we were doing, lawyers, Jay, Steve Stout, lots of people I called on for help and leaned on them for help at that time.
What did you want to be growing up?
Every black kid in the hood is a basketball player.
Right.
He's balling,
Of course.
In the 6th or 7th grade, I played AAU basketball. And on my team was a guy called Jordan Warfield, who his father has since passed away, but I didn't know it then, but his father was the late, great Mr. Warfield was the athletic trainer for the Cleveland Indians.
Wow.
And one weekend, I spent the night at Jordan's house, and we went to the game with his dad, and it was the first time that I was in like a pro atmosphere. We were at the Indians game. We were in the clubhouse before the game, and I saw what his dad was doing, which was, he's an athletic trainer. He's like taping ankles, getting guys ready to go compete. It was the first time I saw there was a job around sports that wasn't
Being on the field, right.
So the second thing I wanted to be was like, I remember telling my mom, I bet you she'd say this day, like, I'm going to be an athletic trainer. I want to be an athletic trainer. I want to go to school. I was like dead set on that. Like, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but it was kind of a doctor, so you probably got paid You know, doctors got paid really good, but
Right.
you were kind of a doctor, so you probably got paid pretty decently. Plus, I had been to their house, and they had a nice ass house. And you still got to be around sport, and you were like, he was in the locker room like he was one of them, but he was just getting them ready. And that was the second thing I wanted to be. And then when I was fortunate enough to start hanging around the shoe companies through AAU and through what LeBron was doing, went to intern at Nike and realized that that's what I wanted to be. But then I thought I wanted to be like a sports marketing, like a marketing person, but I realized what I loved about Nike and what I love about Nike now is they're a storytelling company.
Well, at Nike, what was like the internship? What department was it?
I was in sports marketing.
Sports marketing, okay.
I was in global basketball sports marketing. Wow. So all of the athlete, all of the NBA, all the basketball that happens at Nike from grassroots, meaning their camps and tournaments for high school kids, to college, which is doing deals with, you know, Duke and Kentucky and blah, 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 and manage those all the way up to pro globally.
And this is before LeBron is even in business with
LeBron
Nike.
was in high school.
What were your duties there, and like what were some of your accomplishments that you were proud of from that time?
At that point, they were in a low moment because Adidas had Kobe and Tracy McGrady. Reebok had AI. I think KG had just left and went to And1. Tim Duncan was about to leave. So Nike had some decent players, but they had Jermaine O'Neal and Indy wasn't a great team yet. Paul Pierce. But then that summer, that's why they went out hard. They signed LeBron, Melo, and D-Wade, and Chris Bosh.
Wow.
They put Melo, LeBron and Bosh on Nike, of course, Melo on Jordan, and D-Wade on Converse. And the biggest thing that was actually disrupting and owning the basketball business was this thing that we all know called the And1 mix tour. Shit was on fire.
It was.
They were kicking everybody's ass. And Nike basketball was down. So I started working there in kind of a lower moment from Nike. It's been great since then, but I worked on the basketball sports marketing department, was lucky enough to work under some fantastic, very smart people led by Lynn Merritt, and really learned. At that time, it wasn't like Nike with basketball was flying high and was the king of the hill. They were getting their AI was on fire.
Right.
Stout was doing the hip hop and all that shit. Then that's how I met Stout, because when Reebok pitched LeBron, Stout led the pitch in May of 2003.
Turned out a big check with that.
Yeah, Stout and I became friends then. So they were doing that. Kobe was winning titles, and Adidas and Tracy McGrady was so. I really had to work on this team that was like trying to figure it out, even though it was Nike, as you guys know today is the king of the hill. Yeah. But then Nike basketball was scrambling like, shit, we got to figure it out. And that's why they bet big on LeBron.
But was it like going from an intern to negotiating a $1 billion deal?
It was like a dream come true. It was like full circle.
Right.
As a kid growing up, as we talked earlier, of hip hop, of like thinking about all those days listening to hip hop albums and getting that feeling that you can have, and you do possess the ability to go fucking do this. Like channeling that was a big part of it, and realizing that I had been channeling it the whole way up until that moment.
Before that, when did you first feel like, you said obviously you got drawn into the thing and had to learn and build a great team and manage LeBron, like those years in Cleveland, the first run? Like, when did you start to feel like you really had a good handle on things?
That's a great question. When LeBron did his second Nike deal, that was the first deal I did. And then I came out of that like, damn, I got a lot more to learn and to figure out. But the beautiful thing about life and a career is it allows you to figure things out.
How did you get good at business then?
I don't know if I'm good. I mean,
come on,
what's the definition of good?
I mean,
I think I'm still learning. I think I'm still
overcoming
building.
the obstacles. Like when the decision didn't go the way you probably planned it, how do you get out of that, right? You catch a lot of heat, right? It does well. It changes the game, as you said. You gave the money to charity. So much was executed right? But you caught a tremendous amount of heat. So how do you get past that?
I think you get past that, and again, I talked about this in my commencement speech. You get past that by remembering and getting back to what is your break even. Like, if you really screw this all up and lose everything, where do you actually end up? And going through it in the moment, it's hard to think about that. It's hard to go like, well, if I screw this all up, I really just broke even. Like I was so far ahead by just getting a job at Nike, let alone being able to go start my own company and manage LeBron James, the biggest athlete in the world. I was actually way far ahead. I wasn't. Yeah. So if I screw, you have to get back to like, what is actually my break even? And also like, even if I screwed this up, do I still have some talent? Yeah. But it's hard to get through all the people talking shit about you and people putting you, like, it's hard to like, you got to swim through all of that just to get to the point where like, oh, I could break even and be okay, but it's not easy for sure.
Mentioned in the USC speech, Michael Rappaport tried to discredit you and your accomplishments. Like, what was your thoughts about that? Does it bother you?
I didn't even. The truth is, I didn't even pay attention or care. I only paid attention when a guy who works at Uninterrupted, my man Jimmy Spencer, and him ended up like in a Twitter conversation.
Said, you just wanted us to put you on, kid.
Yeah. Jimmy said that. When Jimmy got him with him, like I'm not paying attention to Michael Rappaport. Yeah. I'm like trying to empower people, empower athletes and creators and build an awesome company. Michael Rappaport's trying to get hot. Do you know what I mean? Right, so we have two different missions. So we're playing in two different games.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Phil Jackson thing with the posse thing. Like, do you feel like you still have that it's still important that people recognize? Do you feel like you're still fighting for that respect?
Well, Phil is obviously much different than Michael Rappaport.
Right. Yes, of course.
And at the time, Phil had an influential job in basketball running the New York Knickerbockers, right? So I felt like I had to say something to Phil. That hit my radar in a different way. So I felt like, making sure it was understood that what Phil was saying wasn't about me and LeBron. It was about you too, and you. It was
culture,
about us.
Culture, right.
It was about who we are, what we represent.
We're businessmen too.
Yeah, that a group like us can't be seen as anything more than what he defined us as. Yeah. So, and he's an influential person who hires people and fires people and puts people on at the time, right? He's not in that position anymore. But at that time, and hands out contracts. So it was important that I said that about him. Anybody else is a little different. But if you have a role where you influence a company or an organization or a big, and you still feel that way, then I'm going to feel like I have something to say to you to make sure you aren't just looking at this the wrong way, and like you're not viewing us through that same old lens.
Yeah. To go back to the actual decision, besides the whole TV special, why at that point was the right decision to go to Miami? And that's, look back in history now, like that was a bold move. We didn't really see stars from one team join another team that had an established star. And obviously Wade and LeBron have a great friendship, but like talk about that process of him really actually doing that in those Miami Heat transitions.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, LeBron is the person that I know that is the best at knowing what is right for them at the right moment. No matter what you say, they say, he say, she say. And I think it's a little bit probably that LeBron is 34. He's about to be 35. He, at 34 years old, he has been, his life has been discussed in the public forum for more than half of his life, since he was 16, so 18 years. You can't fathom what that feels like. I can't either. I have no idea.
In the most social media age you've ever had.
His life has been dissected in every way since he appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 17. So he really has an ability to go, this is what I'm doing, this feels right to me. And I think, what people often miss is he based that decision solely off a basketball decision. It wasn't about like going to get on the beach in Miami or going to hang out with his friend Dwayne Wade or going to learn from Pat Riley. He was like, the Celtics are really fucking good. That's what people miss. I mean, you go back, the Celtics have fucking KG,
Paul
Pierce, Rondo.
Right.
3 Hall of Famers, Rondo.
Doc Rivers coaching them. and they were going to be hard to fucking beat unless we put a great team together somewhere else. I can't go play with them, so I got to go figure out how do I beat them and then try and win a championship. But just to beat them, is they were the best team. And not to mention, the Lakers were great. I mean, that was 2000. The Lakers had just went to 3 straight finals. They lost to the Celtics in 2008. They beat Orlando in 2009, beat the Celtics in 2010. They had Kobe, Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom, Ron Artest, Trevor Ariza, and Phil Jackson. So he was like, yo.
Got to load up.
Stacked.
Well, I just got to at least have a chance to beat these teams. And like, so it wasn't anything else for him except for how do I put together and play for a team that has a shot. There's no guarantee I'm going to beat them. As we saw in 2011, he lost to a whole different team that came, Dallas, that came out of nowhere. But it was like, how do I just put together a great team? And I hope other things come out of it. Like, I get to live in Miami. That's a beautiful place. And I get to be with Dwayne Wade. But he was just like, how do I play on a great team?
Yeah, I thought that was weird. That's the one thing I didn't like with the decision because he had said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. That always bothered me. I don't know why. Like, I just felt like it didn't seem like he was seeming a little nervous. It wasn't really like what the right sentiment to really say. It was really more about, joining that team and being on a good team. But I think that's why I think it kind of got.
I love that line now because it's like anytime you make a decision somewhere,
I'm taking my talents.
I'm taking my talents.
I say that when I'm going to the club. my friends and I, we started this like, I'm taking my talents to 1-0.
No, but they had to go through that transition of like him and Wade, right? Like I guess the first year Wade, you kind of deferred to Wade because it's his team before you got there, right? And then it seemed like Wade kind of said, you know what, Bron, you got to be Bron. You got to take more of a leadership role.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I think Dwayne Wade is one of the greatest basketball players I've ever seen play. He's also a very mature, smart, intelligent guy. He gets the big picture. And I think he knew that the facts were the facts, that LeBron was the best player on the team. And in order to go all the way, he had to say that to LeBron. It couldn't be the coach. Dwayne knew, I think, I've never had this conversation with him, that he had to say to LeBron, yo, man, go, do your thing, in order for LeBron to just take over. And Dwayne was like, I'll adjust. I'll make the adjustment. And that's a big deal because he's a great player, one of the great players. And it worked. They went to 4-1 too. So I think it was the right thing. He knew and was mature enough to recognize that LeBron was the best player in the world, not just on the team, but also he had the ability, which is hard, to suppress his ego and play with LeBron.
Absolutely.
And he had the wherewithal and the emotional IQ to adjust to LeBron as they went. You just be you. Yeah. I'll make the adjustment. That's hard to do.
You think that inspired KD to make the change he did and to join Golden State?
I don't know if it inspired KD. I think I think if you talk about inspiration for KD or LeBron or Shaq or anybody or Michael is always winning. I think KD looked at it as like, I'm one of the greatest players to ever play, which he is. But in order to be seen that way, I need to win championships. That's what all the great players have done. Yeah. And I think that was his inspiration. I think LeBron going to Miami was a thing he could always point at and say, he did it too. Right. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say LeBron inspired him. I would say it gave him a thing to point to go, look at that one too. I'm fine over here. Yeah. Though I think it was a bit different, but I think his inspiration was just the greats of before him, including LeBron, who had won titles.
Is it weird not seeing LeBron play?
In a weird way, I'm happy my man is getting a break finally. I mean, he wouldn't like to hear me say that. Whenever he listens to this podcast, I'm sure he'll be pissed off. But to hear me say that, because he would rather be playing basketball. But listen,
Taco Tuesdays isn't exciting enough.
Taco Tuesdays is funny. Just LeBron, right? He does Taco Tuesdays, is a big deal. You know what I mean?
Is he driving the family crazy? He's one of those. He said he watched every game, right?
Him and his family are away somewhere. I don't know. They went somewhere, but he's watching every game. LeBron is a guy who has energy that I can't even explain nonstop. Is the reason why he probably could play in fucking 8 straight finals. and still be okay. So I'm sure his wife and kids are probably by now wishing he was playing, and so he get the fuck out the house. But their wish is coming because he's about to start shooting a movie soon. So so they're gonna be okay.
Space Jam 2?
Space Jam. I don't know if it'll be called
the Space Jam.
Space Jam.
Okay.
Why did you guys go to the Lakers?
We didn't go to the Lakers. I don't play for the Lakers.
Why did LeBron?
I wish.
Decision 3.0. Why did?
I wish I got paid $45 million. If I got paid $45 million to play for the Lakers,
Mav on the bench. Mav can give you a good 5 minutes.
What?
7 minutes?
Word.
I'll clean I'll clean the toilets, do the assists,
I'll help you.
and get the other players water.
I think you would get a couple buckets.
Oh man,
Rebound or two.
If I could have signed the same contract he did with the Lakers, they could have put in a motorcycle and had a little sidecar. I'd have gotten the sidecar.
But is LA a good fit, you think, for Bron?
I think at this point in LeBron's life and his career, he wants to win basketball games. He wants to be on a winner. He wants to do things that make him happy, though. So I think at this point, this was the end of his 16th season, which sounds weird saying.
Yeah,
Crazy.
16.
Wow.
He's going to 17.
Woo.
He's played at the highest level for so long, longer than anybody else. There's not been another player in basketball that played at the level he played at for that long straight.
No,
Nobody.
Without the
Michael
decline.
took a break. He retired for 2 years.
Kobe?
Kobe didn't play in 8 straight finals. Kobe played at a high level for a long time, but he had a little lull in there where he, in between the Shaq and the Pau Gasol years, where they were okay, but they were going out in the first round. He was dragging them. They were fighting
Carrying
with
them,
Phoenix. They went to 7-game with Phoenix, but he wasn't getting into like late June, 8 straight years. So not Kobe. The only other athlete that's like that is Tom Brady, actually.
Yeah, good friend of yours.
A good friend of mine, exactly. I think at this point, LA is the place he wants to be, and he's earned the right to be the place he wants to be.
What do you think about the comparisons of a young Zion Williamson to LeBron?
I think it's natural. It's always easier, whether it's business, life, a person, a relationship in your life, to be able to point to like, oh, this is just like X is just like Y. So Zion has that people talking about him, and the train is rolling a bit like LeBron, probably not as big, but it is big. He has a bit of a comparison to LeBron. His game is a lot different, but there's similarities. But his athleticism and being an athletic athlete built that way at that age. So it's just natural. So I'm fine with it. I hope he handles it correctly and has the team around him to do it, which, he signed with Lisa Joseph at CAA, who's obviously very, very great. Worked with Dwayne Wade, again, one of the smartest, best basketball players ever, and Lisa knows what she's doing. So he'll have the team around him. So I hope that he becomes LeBron or a version of LeBron. I think, that's obviously, maybe the highest standard we've ever seen.
Big shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill. It's like, so I hope he can do it. It'd be great. It'd be great for the sport of basketball. It'd be great for everything. And there's always got to be somebody, right? Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. Going back to the Laker thing, one final question with that. Do you think that LeBron's affected at all by, it seems like, a lot of turbulence and chaos with the Lakers? Like, he expressed his feelings about the way Magic left the team. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Magic leaving.
I think Magic leaving was totally fine. I think LeBron's point about Magic communicating with him that he was going to leave, that's how LeBron personally feels. Do I agree with him? Yeah. Do I think Magic had to call him? Of course not. He could do whatever the fuck he wants. He's Magic. Could he have called him? Sure. Is LeBron right to feel like, man, why didn't you just give me a heads up? Like, tell me something? Sure. Yeah. I think as it relates to the Lakers going forward, they got a lot of work to do. I think Jeannie Buss, the owner, from what I can tell, is committed to it. I know LeBron is committed to it, and I think Frank Vogel is a good coach. Now they got to just get the ship straightened out. Rob's got to do the work to put together a roster, and figure it out. But it's definitely chaotic.
Yeah.
Right now, it's been chaotic for a while between Jeannie and her brothers and her wrestling the team away. But they have the parts to build a decent foundation. Now they just got to do it and calm down. It's hard when you're the LA Lakers though, right? Because the LA Lakers aren't even in the playoffs, and you have LeBron James, the biggest athlete in the world. So everybody pays attention to every single. There's other teams out there too that are chaotic and fucked up. We just don't pay attention to it.
No, it's like missing LeBron. You go
exactly.
Stephen A. Smith said he thinks that LeBron's going to come out with a vengeance MVP type year 17. Do you feel like this is extra motivation for LeBron that he is not part of the playoffs this year in the finals?
I don't know if I would call it extra motivation. I'm not sure how much more motivated LeBron. He's the most dedicated, committed, motivated person I've ever seen. I wish I had an ounce of his commitment.
Like the year when he would eat a carb or something, right? Then
he's
just on that crazy diet.
60 days. He just do anything.
It's crazy.
So I don't think he needs anything extra, but I think he will definitely come out and have a fantastic year next year in year 17.
Right. Did you ever think about playing on the collegiate level?
I played.
did?
Oh, playing on collegiate. Okay.
I played college basketball for 2 seasons.
Oh, okay. And why not pursue it any?
Because I knew I was very clear that nobody was going to pay me millions of dollars to play. Like, as I talked about Dwayne Wade being aware, I was very self-aware that I need to figure out work because I am never going to get offered a contract for $100 million to play basketball.
One last thing I was thinking about, there's a viral video of 50 Cent getting approached by a fan. He's trying to give him like his pitch about how he should get. Did you see it? How he's trying to get on?
Yeah, I actually saw it.
And
50's hilarious.
And I thought you gave the best advice about that. And talk about like how successful people, they don't mind talking about the success if you approach them the right way.
Yes.
Right. Like talk about that. Like because everybody is inspired, about your story and things like that. Like everybody wants to be successful. You look at social media, everybody's looking for like that one quote that's going to change their life, right?
Yeah,
like,
50 handled it in a way that is appropriate for 50. I don't know 50 super well, but I love 50 Cent the way he handles things. But the guy who was approaching 50 approached 50 totally the wrong way. Like, check my thing out. Look at my thing.
Yeah.
What about me? What about me? What about me? What about me?
Yeah.
And my theory is always, you're approaching somebody like 50 Cent or anybody, if someone's approaching you, a young journalist.
I've been through those 50 Cent moments.
I'm sure. But if somebody's approaching you and really wants to speak to you, they should have a little knowledge about you and ask you about you. Ask you about Elliot. Ask you about your success. Because my line is, successful people love nothing more than talking about their successes. They don't want to hear about your thing or what you're trying to do or you're trying to pitch them this or pitch them that. But if you actually start asking them questions about their successes and get into a conversation with them and express to them that you have knowledge about them, their industry, what they're doing, you may end up with an internship like Sophie, who knows?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes. And also when you're an organization, you said it's about not about you bringing your agenda, it's about finding what needs to be done, right? Like seeking the value. Like, what does this company need? Not about like what your agenda is coming into.
Everybody wants to, that guy runs up on 50 pushing his agenda is like, I'm sure 50's like, man, I'm just out doing my thing. I don't want to hear about what you did or whatever. But I'm sure if that guy would approach 50, like, man, how did you get a record deal? I heard it was like this. I've listened to Power of a Dollar. I know Tone made that, but it didn't come out. Why didn't it come out? Blah, blah, blah. 50 might have gave him time because 50 would be like, damn, you know about that? That's interesting. That's a cool thing. But that's how you approach successful people because you don't approach them when you're trying to get on, like pushing your agenda because they get that all the time. But if you show them you have pure curiosity and understanding and want and thirst and hunger for the industry that they're in and what they do, then you get a whole different person coming back at you. You don't get 50 coming back at you the way 50 went back at that guy.
Well, thank you, Mav, man. Continue
thank
success,
you.
man.
Success. I wore my good LeBron shoes.
I love them, man.
What's your favorite LeBron?
The LeBron 9 lows. Those are ill.
The best LeBron sneaker.
What's your favorite LeBron sneaker? Yeah.
The best are my favorite.
See, that's how I do things. Let's do both.
Yeah, your favorite. Or both.
My favorite is the LeBron 9 Elite.
South Beach.
South Beach.
Those are my favorite.
I love those. Those are hard to find. The 9 where he won his first championship in those.
With the gray and the...
This gray. It's a South Beach, but it's
About
gray.
to cry.
I want those, man. With the hot pink, the Miami Vice. Oh,
Yeah, those are dope. The most sought after the LeBron 8 South Beach. Those are like all turquoise. But I like the 9 Elite with the big flaps on the side.
Yeah.
Them shits is my favorite. Them is my favorite. And the ones, I mean, it's easy to say the Zoom generation, but the
can you give me a
ones.
pair?
I wish I had a. I wish I had
interview.
I wish I was like a genie and could pull him out of his glass of wine. I would give it to you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
No worries.
Yeah, Rap Radar
Thank you, bro.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Bro.